Welcome everybody to another GIZ technical seminar. We're just waiting for a few people to come in from the lobby. And all right, now I think everybody's coming. Hello everybody, my name is Stephen Frost. I'm your moderator today, as always, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of GIZ Fabric, who has been hosting this series of technical webinars. Today, titled Decarbonising Textile and Garment Manufacturing, some practical guidance from the field. Those of you who've been following along with the GIZ online seminars will know that back in May, so earlier this year, GIZ Fabric hosted a conversation about how the industry could collectively achieve decarbonisation targets. And that was a fairly general conversation that involved the entire value chain, from brands and retailers, stakeholders in Europe and elsewhere, through to producers on the ground. And so that was a more general conversation about the ability of the industry to meet or achieve decarbonisation targets. This online seminar, this technical seminar, is a much more deeper dive into the issue of decarbonisation from a producer perspective in the region, more than a general perspective. And I think we're all aware. Of course, you're aware if you've joined this online seminar. Of course, you're aware that the pressure is on the industry to reduce environmental impact, and many of you are aware firsthand, particularly if you're a producer in Asia, you're aware firsthand that fashion brands and retailers in Europe and North America and elsewhere are setting decarbonisation targets, and those decarbonisation targets appear to be ramping up, getting more and more stringent as time goes by. And unlike 15 or 20 years ago, where a lot of this sort of CSR, as we used to call it in those days, a lot of these CSR things were voluntary, and today that's changed. And I think if you want to stay in the industry as a producer, you've got to find a way to at least be on a pathway to meeting the goals and the targets that are being set, either by companies or, as we see, by governments. And I think over the next few years we're going to see more and more governments legislating on these issues, not just decarbonisation, but a whole range of sustainability issues. So it's my very great pleasure today to introduce two experts from this area, both of whom have around 2 decades worth of experience working on sustainability, and particularly the issue of around climate action, we call it decarbonisation now, but CO2 emissions reductions, greenhouse gas emissions reductions in the industry, in the supply chain, with on the ground expertise. Our first speaker comes to us from Pakistan, and thank you for him for making the time. Mr. Saqib Shahzad, who is the head of sustainability for Sapphire Diamond Fabrics Limited. Saqib is a vastly experienced head of sustainability, working in the spinning, weaving, processing and apparel industry for close on to 20 years. He's got a range of certifications and expertise in water management, chemical management, waste management, etc. So the whole range of sustainability expertise that's required for this industry. He's also got an MBA, and he's done a whole range of auditing courses across a bunch of ISO standards, ZDHC, Big Index, BSCI, et cetera, a whole range of auditing and compliance standards that all of you would be familiar with. Saqib comes to us from the industry in Pakistan. He'll tell us more about what he's been doing. And he's got some really interesting data for us today to look at about his company's journey in this sustainability space, but with a focus on the decarbonisation targets and achievements. I think you'll find that very interesting. So I look forward to that discussion. Our second speaker is Mr. Eric Rader. Now, Eric is a technical expert on green jobs, climate action, and resilience through just transition in the Asia Pacific region, working for the International Labour Organization, the ILO, and he lives in Bangkok. He's in the Bangkok office. So Eric also has 2 decades of experience in advancing the entire agenda around energy efficiency and cleaner production. So very much in the decarbonisation space, reducing greenhouse gas emissions with the UNEP, so United Nations Organization. He has worked with the private sector, sustainable development, delivery of projects, and really advancing the private sector's role in dealing with climate risks and associated risks coming from that. So that's a very big area, and I welcome both Eric and Saqib to the conversation. I'm going to start with Eric first, and I'm doing that because I think Eric can give us some sort of contextual feeling for the topic in Asia, and with a focus on producers, manufacturers. But before we kind of get into that sort of contextualization, Eric, the question I have for you is, why is the International Labour Organization interested in decarbonisation? What's the link between the ILO and decarbonisation?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's coming, actually, I'm coming from UNSCAP, and I just joined the International Labour Organization. So for the International Labour Organization, everything is now addressing the impacts of climate change and how that impacts jobs. So we're looking at just transition. So as industries have to change to more cleaner and greener energy solutions to reduce their carbon footprints, for example, then we have to make sure that the jobs that are associated, for example, in the coal industry, that those people are in that industry are not left behind and are able to move to cleaner, greener jobs that can be in the renewable energy sector, hydropower, anything away from coal. But the main objective is that we don't leave anyone behind, and that these jobs are retrained, and that people are reskilled so that they can move to these new cleaner sectors. So that's what I would say in a nutshell there.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. So just sticking with Eric, what does decarbonisation look like in the Asian apparel and textile sector now? You know, based on your experience, yeah, how far has it come? Where are we now? You know, what's your assessment of where we are now? Can you give us a sort of a brief overview of that?
Well, for the garment sector, I just had a Stockholm Environment Institute seminar yesterday, and with a number of factories in Cambodia, for example. And we're still pretty much at the discussion stage. So there are factories that are very good examples that are moving their energy pattern, their model, their particular development models more towards green and cleaner production because they see the cost benefit in it. Now that doesn't mean that there's that does mean that there is a cost, and it's an upfront cost, but they see the long-term benefits. But in general, for the sector, in the countries that we're working in, which is Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and other countries, we see that we're still at the discussion stage. People are just getting into the concept of what a just transition is, what green jobs are, and there's still this kind of thinking that we do this first and we can clean up later. But trying to turn that image around is taking some time. We're trying to show that the cost effectiveness, the cost benefits of moving to a greener and cleaner production, for example. But yeah, I'll leave it at that so I can hear the next aspect of your question.
So what's the blockage then? Is it just are companies balking at the cost of? I mean, okay, some companies are seeing the cost benefit, so they're looking at sort of cost minimization strategy. But yeah, seeing some sort of benefit. But for the factories that are not doing it, what's the blockage there? Are we looking at just factory-based issues, or is there a kind of larger policy environment there that we need to take into consideration?
Sure. Well, I would have to say in any sector across the Asia Pacific region, most countries actually have fairly good environmental policies in place. It's the and strategies. It's the implementation. So for the private sector to move ahead, it's really the private sector itself that we find that it's taking the initiative. It's not that the private sector is we are doing this because the government is telling us to do so. It's just that they're doing it on their own. So, and if you want to repeat the first part of your question again, why are companies doing this, or why are they not doing this? I think the main barrier is anytime you talk about environment, anytime you talk about climate change or greening, it sounds like a burden. And for the last 20 years, every time we talk about environment in any sector, if it's the steel, pulp, and paper sector, the first thing that pops up in people's minds is, oh, this is a cost, this is going to be a burden to us. So going back 15 years working with UNEP, for example, we had a project on energy efficiency and cleaner production. Now, the whole point of having that was to get companies to actually reduce their carbon footprints. But we never told them that. The whole thing was to say, hey, you can be more cost effective if you clean up your production processes and improve your energy efficiency. So if we frame it like that, I think we will see more and more changes. And I think the company that we have today can demonstrate that.
Before we get on to Sakib, what are some of the good examples that you've seen in your work over the last 5 or 10 years in the textile and apparel sector? What sort of things stand out to you as looking at a company and thinking, wow, these guys are really ahead of the game?
What pops into my mind firstly is this company called Cytex. They're based in Vietnam, but I think their CEO is in the U.S., in Los Angeles. But what they have done is gone into a sort of a circular zero carbon footprint, where everything they're doing, including how they use water, they reduced water drastically because they found other processes in the dyeing process, for example, where they don't have to use these toxic chemicals, and they don't have to, which means they don't put their employees at risk. You're improving your occupational safety and health. So throughout and what's happened with this particular company is that they're gaining attention from buyers such as Gap and Guess and other companies out there, where the consumer base, younger people who want to be green, who want to make purchases that they don't think will impact the environment as much. And this particular company has addressed reducing its water input. It's cleaned up its factories. It's reduced the temperature inside the factories just by changing the roofing materials, for example, not by increasing its energy consumption by putting more air conditioning in, but just by changing the roofing materials, which has lowered the temperature in the factory by like 5%. And as you know, in Southeast Asia here, heat stress in factories, not just in garment factories, but in other factories from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, and so forth. Heat stress is now part of what's happening with climate change. So all across their machinery, everything, they've learned to reduce their energy consumption. They've cleaned up their processes. And their growth model is to go completely zero carbon, and I think they're about 2 or 3 years away from that. Go back to you, Stephen.
Yeah, yes, Cytex is a very interesting example. Yes, okay, thanks for that. Now, if you're listening to us here and you have a question, by all means, type it into the chat box. We're more than happy to field questions. If you're a fast typer and can get a question in quickly while someone's still speaking, then I will address it to the speaker immediately. And if we can't catch it in time, we'll come back during a Q&A session at the end, where we can tie up any loose ends of questions that people have asked. So please feel free to ask any question that you feel. I'll come back to Eric a bit later on, but now let's turn to Saqib in Pakistan. Saqib, before we start talking about what your company's doing, can you just give us a brief overview of what line of business the company is in? Can you just introduce the company a little bit, size, what it's doing, etc.? You're on mute, Saqib. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. First of all, I just want to share that Sapphire Diamond Fabrics is one of the leading textile company in Pakistan. It's a vertical integrated setup, and we are just taking the cotton and converting into the final product. So at the moment, the first thing is regarding the decarbonizations. Apart from the business, it's our ethical responsibility. Because from last many years, we are converting natural resources into the product and then into the waste. And that is triggering the climate challenges, like water scarcity, pollutions, damages of the soil, also damaging the water table. So these kind of things that we are facing. The first is the ethical responsibility, and being in responsible organizations. So there are different things within the facility to improve our standard. So we are focusing on the area. We have highlighted the things from last 5 years in this company, and there are many different things that are very interesting to share with you. Again, I will emphasize the ethical responsibility, and then now the future is only for the sustainable product. If you want to stay in a global market, you have to produce a sustainable product. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the manufacturer to stay in a global markets. So that's at the moment my side. So we have to focus on this area. Yeah.
Can you give us some sort of idea about? You say if you want to stay in this business as a producer, you've got to produce a sustainable product. Can you give us some sort of idea about how the demands from brands have been increasing over the time that you've been in the business? You know, how much of an increase in that demand have you seen?
Yeah, the first thing is whatever we are facing the challenges from the brand, they are always focusing on the gathering information from us. The first thing we faced regarding the information they are collecting from us, and then we try to identify which is the more hazardous area we need to rectify, and then we are setting up the things according to that. For example, some of the brand, they are focusing to reduce your carbon emissions. Ultimately, they have giving some certain timeline. Some of them have giving the 2024, some of them giving 2030. So if a company is not going to achieve their targets to reduce your carbon emission by 20%, or sometimes they are focusing on the 40%, so they are not going to have any business with you. So we are also following the local obligations and also the brand requirements. But on the other side, whenever you are focusing to work on this kind of a sustainable process, there are huge investment is involved. You have to investment. But in that case, some of the company who are focusing that if is it an expense, if they're considering sustainability is expense, and that would be a great disaster for that company, because sustainability investment is for your future. If you are investing in this area, you are going to sustain in the future. So there are some interesting data from I have. If you allow me, I can share. Just give me a second.
Okay, we can see it.
I think now it's full screen.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Beautiful.
As we are focusing on our carbon decarbonizations, the first thing I just want to introduce my company. Sapphire Diamond is one of the leading textile company in Pakistan. It's one of the branches of Sapphire Group. The first spinning mills was established in 1970, and with the span of 50 years, company has technically advanced in quality enterprise-oriented system with a fully integrated with spinning, weaving, and apparel divisions. We have more than 20 factories in Pakistan. We are not just dealing in a textile. We also dealing with some electric energy for the solar system, also the wind power, and some of the business we are also dealing with the dairies. Well, as you know, cotton growing in Pakistan is suitable for a cross-cone spinning, which makes it ideal cone for denim manufacturing, given the amount of fabric manufactured in country. Pakistan is growing fast as a apparel manufacturer in order to more sustainable and for the more shortened lead time. Well, this is a vertical setup. Some of time we were supplying some of the fabric to our Vietnam supplier, or sometime we are supplying to the Bangladesh supplier. So in that case, we give the confidence to the customer. If you give the order directly to us, their lead time will be reduced. Lead time means they also more cost efficiency. We have a diversification within the facility. We also producing yarn, gray fabric, denim fabric, garments, and we are also producing some digital printing products, corduroy, and jet tying. Quickly, I'm just going to have a short introduction of the production process. We have a spinning facility, and this spinning facility with the capacity of 2,600 spindles at the moment, 26,000 spindles at the moment, and we are producing 26,000 bags in a month. Within the facility, we have a weaving setup, and almost 65 million meters we are producing annually. In a finishing side, we have capacity to finish the product 8.5 million meters in annually. Last but not least, apparel divisions. Our design development team is made of international consultant with expert, and this team is forefront for the fabric innovation, design, development, storage of the link, industry expert, and chemical machineries, and the fabric product that we are producing. Currently, our monthly capacity is around 400,000. I have mentioned 300,000 here, so I think a month old slide I have. Currently, we have 400,000, but we are expanding our production capacity to 1 million garments in a month, and that we are going to achieve by end of next year. Well, Group has some of the most technologically advanced excellence driven, and it's a vertical integrated setup. The Sapphire is totally fully integrated, and the group have a conglomerate of 900 million US dollar. We are focusing on some of the European market, Africa, China, and also north, south part of some of the country dealing with us for the market. I don't, well, definitely I want to appreciate GIG for giving some technical support throughout last many years. GIG is supported in terms of technical assistance, provide to improve the Sapphire Diamond Fabrics Limited with the framework of GNG product, and that was the dialogue for the sustainability. And we would like to especially acknowledge the professionalism shown by the project and also the consultant they have hired for us to improve our production capacities and also to improve the sustainable process. Whatever we have achieved from last couple of years, the support by the GAG was remarkable, and that we have received through some technical expert they have hired for us. This is very important. Textile industry and the garment sector for a significant proportion of a carbon emissions, and that is around about 6 to 8%. In terms of, if I talk about absolute number, almost 1.7 billion tons of carbon is being emitted by the textile industry. And this is with a source of ILO report. Well, the Paris Agreement set out the limit global warming to reduce 2 degrees of our temperature around the world, and that was a preferable limiting warming to 1.5 degree. And we are also working internally, and also we are focusing to reduce our carbon emission to achieve the Paris Climate Agreement. Ultimately, the emission reduction associated with the goal that significantly to reach the global emissions and then declining by the 45% on the level of 2010. And then we are going to achieve this by 2030. And there are some of the local company involved in Pakistan, like I wouldn't say the local company is a kind of a trust, the Net Zero Pakistan, and now we are also signatory of Net Zero Pakistan, and they are going to cover for the zero emission by end of 2050. And Sapphire Group is also the signatory of it. This is very important to understand, as I already told to you, we are using the nature resources and then converting it into the waste. And that has to be changed. We have to think some differently. We have to find out the way from where we can use our nature resources. Because a product life cycle assessment is very important to understand your carbon emissions, your life of your product, and it's broken down into the 4 stages. The first thing is introduction, growth, maturity, and the decline. Whatever we are taking from our nature resources, there are 3 different ways. The first thing is whatever we are taking, we have to reuse it. The second thing is we have to focus on this area, and that is the cradle to cradle, the first thing, cradle to gate, whatever we are covering within the facility, and the cradle to grave. Whatever the product you are producing in your facility, you have to ensure it should be a biodegradable. It shouldn't have any impact on your environment. So we are also working on a product life cycle assessment. There are too many challenges to achieve this. The first thing is we need to understand the carbon emissions. Well, for the carbon emissions, we can categorize it into the 3 categories: the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 is whatever the carbon is being emitted within your facility, and scope 2 is whatever you're purchasing from third party in terms of steam or in terms of the electricity. Scope 3 is a bit challenging part at the moment, because whenever you are producing any final product like a garment, for the garment, you also need fabric, you also need thread, frames, button, rivet. So these things you need to have in your facility to produce a final product. By producing this, you also need to study the carbon emission of each product. Like you have to understand the chemical that you're using, what are the chemical emissions, carbon emission of this chemical, and what are the carbon emission of your fabric, trims. So you have to understand this, because This is the one of the reason. I was just suffering internet few days ago. I have noticed this shoes. They have mentioned the carbon footprint on the pair, and now textile industry also start working on this. They are also trying to calculate the carbon emission. If you see on the bottom of the shoes, they have mentioned the number of carbon is being emitted to produce one pair of the shoes. And for the textile sector at the moment is a bit difficult because most of the company is not well aware of it. Most of the company do not have the information how to collect the information and how they can provide this information to your supplier. Well, first for any company need to understand which is the more hazardous area or which is the more common area from where you can identify your information. As a manufacturer, there are three main parts. The first part is you have to identify the hazardous area. First is carbon emissions. The emission in your, that is the one part. Second is the wastewater. Third one is your hazardous waste that you are generating within the facility. Whenever you are going to take any action, you need information, you need data. How you can collect it? You have to collect with the two different methods. The first method is you have to collect this information through the real-time information from the any systematic way, or some of the process, some of the production area is not allowing you to have these kind of a tools or this kind of data analoger over there. You have to go for the visualization. So either you can go for the real-time information or you can go for the manual information. So Sapphire is currently using its BMS SCADA system, and we have spent around 300,000 euro for this system, and almost 70 to 80% information we are getting through this system. And what kind of information we are collecting? We are collecting energy information, water, steam, chemical consumption, air. So this information we are collecting through this system. So once you have this information, you have to provide this information to all your stakeholders, like your production department. For example, if you are using some of the chemicals in your facility, you need to identify how much quantity you are being used, although it's being monitored, but systematically you need to identify. Most of the factory is focusing on the chemical consumption only, but on the other hand, we have to focus on the steam consumption as well, energy consumption as well, and also the water consumption. If you have this kind of a system within your facility, you have a real-time information, and you can share real-time information with your production head. Sometime after a month, when you are collecting manually information, it takes time to take the corrective action. But if this information is real-time available to your HODs, this information can easily be communicated to everyone, and then they can also take the action very proactively. Well, once you have this information, if you are claiming that you have reduced certain amount of water, you have reduced certain amount of carbon emission, nobody is going to accept that. Customer is not believing the information that you are sharing with them. They only believe a validated information. For the validated information, you have to go for certain internationally recognized tools like Higindex, Beehive, CleanChain, and the ClearStream. Higindex is a tool that is providing environment management, energy, waste, wastewater, chemicals. So these modules they are providing to evaluate yourself, and then third party is coming to verify the information that you are putting over there. Beehive and CleanChain is being used for the chemical compliance. ClearStream, and this can be used for the wastewater that you are discharging within your facility. I just want to give you a few examples it's a kind of a case study that we have recently conducted through the third party. We have started working on a Higindex in 2018. I'm considering this year as a base year. So on the left of your screen, you can see it's a 0%. And on environment management system, we achieved 68 marks. Energy 95, water, wastewater, air emission, and accumulative we have got 53.94 marks. And these marks can be calculated through the tools that is Higindex. First, you have to provide all information on the system, and then third party is coming to validate the information. If you see the blue screen, that belongs to Diamond Fabrics, and orange screen belongs to the worldwide 8,000 factories self-assessment value. So we are comparing our verified value with the self-assessment value of 8,000 factories worldwide. It was 2018. In 2019, with the improvement of 25%, we got a cumulative mark 67%, and that was validated by the Elevate. Next year in 2020, with the improvement of 37%, we got 74.29, and as compared to 74.29, the rest of the 11,000 factories worldwide got 40.62. Last year, with the improvement of 49%, from the base year, this improvement is from the base year, we got 80 marks, and rest of the world, 15,000 factories, self-assessment value was 47.49. And this information also validated by the Elevate. This is some of the example of chemical management. For the chemical compliance, we are using InCheck. It's an internationally recognized report. And also for the wastewater, to control your wastewater parameter, you have to share the clear stream report with the customer. We have achieved and we have saved 37% water as compared to the previous year. How? I will explain in the next slide. In terms of carbon emission, as we are discussing decarbonization today, we have to find out some alternatives. How we can find the alternative, because the coal consumption is the major source of high carbon emission. We find out some alternatives. For the find out of what is the alternative, at the moment we have natural gas, we have a biomass. First, we purchased our natural gas-fired boiler in 2019, and you can see in the graph, coal consumption is decreasing and natural gas consumption is increasing, and it is because of the switching from coal to natural gas. Sometimes you do not have a continuous supply of your natural gas within Pakistan. We have these kind of challenges. Then you have to go for some alternatives for the backup. We also have a biomass and the diesel. So we have option to go with the natural gas. If we do not have a continuous supply, we also can switch to biomass. And if we do not have a supply of both area, we can go for the diesel usage. In absolute number, as compared to the 2020 with 2021, we reduced 16% of carbon emissions. And how? I already explained to you by the alternatives. We have switches from coal to the natural gas. And then Diamond Fabrics is a vertical integrated setup. This is one of the example for other manufacturers who are also listening to me here. If you have a diversification in your product, you always relied on the normalized value, because as you are increasing your production capacity or you are adding more machine in your facility, you have a more carbon emissions. So that cannot be no realistic data analysis. So in that case, you have to focus on the normalized information. In the normalized data, what we are doing, we have 4 different products: yarn, gray fabric, denim fabric, and garment. For the yarn, we are counting into the bags. Fabric is being counted by the unit of meters, and garment is being counted by the unit of pieces. So we converted all the product into the kgs and divided into the kgs of carbon being emitted into the air. So it is a more realistic information. So that's why we have we achieved 18.2 marks, 2% improvement as compared to the previous year. And how we have achieved all this? The first thing is we use the water reduction of 37% that I already told to you. We first focus on a water 3R methodology: reduce, reuse, and recycle. How we have reduced? We improved new production recipes. In rope dyeing, for example, if we were using 100,000 liters in last year, and by just changing the recipe and by adding different new chemicals, we reduced 99% of water in just rope dyeing process. The first methodology we use for the reduce. And then reuse. Some of the machine like stanter, mercerizing, they have their drums to cool down the fabric temperature. and the water was we were taking to the drums, and that was being discharged, drum, or you can say also the cylinders. So that was being discharged to the drain. We connected these fresh water outlet into the next compartment. The previously, for example, 2 cubic meter or 3 cubic meter water was being discharged, and now it's also reused in the next process. For the recycling, we make some plan with the third parties. By end of next year, we are going to have a 50% of water recycling within the facility. And next 5 years, we are targeting to go for we are targeting to go for the ZLD, zero liquid discharge of water consumption. We have added some of the monitoring system that is giving the real-time information. And second thing, the condensate recovery. We ensured 100% condensate recovery, and condensing economizer is providing a hot water supply to the boiler, and hot water supply to the sometime machine needs hot water. For example, in the past, we were taking groundwater and supplying to the boiler, and same water also being supplied to the machines. Groundwater temperature usually from 30 to 40 centigrade, but when we have to take this water to the 100 centigrade, we need energy. Energy means more carbon emissions. We have condensing economizer, which is taking this water from 40 centigrade to 80 centigrade, and we are not using any energy. We are only using the heat and the air of our power generations. So this power generator is being utilized for the waste heat recovery boiler, and also that is being used for the condensing economizer. Previously, the water was being used from 30 centigrade. We were using some additional energy for giving some more energy to achieve the level of 100 centigrade or sometimes 70 to 90 centigrade. And by using this kind of a minor technology, the enormous number of water was being used. Additionally, all the conventional light within the facility we have replaced, and by replacing this, a huge number of energy was being saved. We have different kind of certifications here. Again, this is also required by the customer and also help your system for the improvement. Now we are further focusing on to reduce a further 15% of carbon emission. We have recently installed 4.2 megawatt solar system in our facility, and that would be operational by end of next month. Also focusing on reducing of our nature resources. Water is being recycled by end of next year, 50%, and ultimately we're going for the ZLD, Alliance Water Stewardship Program. We also following this. A parallel village in process, which is going to achieve the 1 million garments per month in a year. So ultimately, we're focusing to reduce our carbon emissions by adding different methodologies. That's all from my side. If you have a question, I'm available. Sorry, I think I have taken much time.
No, we've got plenty of time, Saqib. Don't worry. We can go even deeper than this. I do have some questions, and I've got a question also from the audience. But before I ask those questions, Eric, do you have any response to this, or do you have any questions that you'd like to dig in with Saqib about what he's talked about?
I'm still getting used to WebEx.
Yeah,
No,
yes,
it's impressive. You know, it just boils down to one question: why? I mean, what made you go from the old way to the new way? I mean, what clicked in your mind to take on? I mean, it's impressive across the board, all the sustainability issues you've done and so forth. I can see, you know, just in the energy mix that you do, that builds in resiliency to your operations. I mean, if you're only focused on one type of energy, say coal, and all of a sudden there's a disruption in the coal supply, and you're unable to jump to you know, biomass or other types of energy that you're linked into. That makes that's an excellent example of building resilience. But just the day you're at home or whenever you're driving, and all of a sudden, I want to just change my operations. What was the trigger?
Well, the first thing is, as I already told you, it's our ethical responsibility. So being an ethical organizations, we already focusing, we have a management commitment to work on these kind of things. And the second most important thing, why we have switched on it, what was the main idea? The cost effectiveness. If you are using the alternatives, if you are reducing your natural resources consumption, if you are reducing your energy cost, then ultimately you can achieve the target of your customer. For example, we have a competition with India, Vietnam, Bangladesh. They are giving the one garment, for example, 5.5 cent, and we have a high cost in this region. So we have to find out some alternatives. We have to go for the reduction of the energy. We have to go for the saving of the water. And that was the second more important point that triggered us. We have to focus on this if we want to stay in the global market. The third point is, and now all the brands, they are not accepting your routine information. They are accepting some sustainable creativeness, or if you are doing something saving. And also brand is having some, they have set some targets. If you're not going to achieve your certain amount of energy, you are not going to reduce this amount of your energy or the water, they are not going to have any business for you. That is also the main focus point we have working on this, and ultimately we have to work on this area.
Just one quick question, Saqib. Which brands put these kind of standards on you? Which like H&M, or I mean, which? I'm curious to know.
I supposed to take the name, but it's an open discussion. That why I didn't take the name, but it's openly I can explain to you.
Okay.
Everyone, like Levi's, have a certain target by end of 2024, and also H&M for working on this. C&A, Contour brands, most of the brand is not working. Even though Zara, the Zara group, Inditex group, the whole group, they have this own certain standard, like Joint Life program. They also design their own program. If you have to follow this, for example, if I'm giving the example of Zara, if we achieve their excellent level of water consumption, then we have some specific orders we can retain. Otherwise, no. If we achieve the good level, then they give some certain timeline. You have to go for the excellent level, then I will give you the order. So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Excellent. Good to hear.
It's very impressive. Thanks for those questions, Eric. Feel free to jump in at any time. I think that's a really interesting presentation, Saqib. But I think in the chat box we've got quite a few people saying they're pretty impressed. Someone says, "I'm indeed mesmerised by what your company has been doing." I think that's a fair comment, especially when we look at the industry in general. You know, you're clearly at the very top end of performance on this in the industry. One of the things you mentioned in the presentation, and you had 2 slides on this, was data collection. I think you had 3 slides on this actually.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you'd spent 300,000 euros or US?
Yeah,
euros.
euros.
Euros on this. Data is certainly a challenge, and one of the reasons you've done that is because brands are not just accepting any old information from you; they want to see specific data, correct? You know, so you're capturing data that brands absolutely want to see, and so you showed us shows your Higgs scores, and so clearly that's a set of data that the brands will accept. Now, so the reason I'm saying all this is there's a question in the chat box from Kim Thabi, and the question is to do with what happens. I mean, how do you go about collecting data if you haven't got all of that electronic stuff that you've got? If you haven't got all the meters, you haven't got all those things collecting data automatically. So this person is asking, is there a method that you could calculate steam data, for instance, in case you don't have a meter? and they're saying they use wood for the boiler. Yeah, so how do you go about, what's your advice to companies that are not ready or whatever, to go, to spend a lot of money on meters? How do you collect that data manually? Is there a way?
Well, there is no need to spend huge amount instantly. We didn't spend this amount initially. We started with the manual meters. That is very cheap in the market, easily available. So if you want to record boiler steam without the SCADA system or without the real-time information, so they're very cheap. Maybe €100 or maybe €50. You can buy a normal steam meter from the market. So you can start initially with this kind of information. So you just need to install at the start of your boiler where you have a production machine, and then you have to calculate this information daily basis, hourly basis, fortnightly or monthly. That can give you some of the idea how much is thing being consumed. You cannot calculate. I have just seen one question by using the wood. That would be a difficult. For example, 1 ton you have wood you have burned into the boiler. What amount of a steam could be generated? I don't think so. That would be a real idea to calculate the information. I would recommend to have a cheapest option for the flow meters. You can install at the end of where your steam is being transferred from boiler to the production area. You just need to install 1 meter there. So initially you can take information from there, and then you can decide furtherly. If you have a different departments, you can install next step in phase 2. You can install in each department, and then you can identify where your steam is being consumed. High consumption of steam you can identify, and then further you can go to the machine wise. We also did the same exercise. It is not we have spent initially the first time €300,000. First, we only used the normal basic meter in the start. I think 5 years ago, we have started with this technology. Once we have this information, we were getting this information, and then we decided, okay, fine, because it's a vertical setup. We have a spinning, we have weaving, we have processing, and we also have a panel division. We have a different challenges here. Everyone have their own management, own director of each responsible area. I'm responsible for everything. Whenever I was sharing this information with all stakeholders, they were saying, no, I'm not using such kind of a steam. I said, okay, I will install meter in your area. And then step by step, they start getting information from me. Okay, I have this amount of steam consumption in my area. Can you explain which department is getting more steam? Then in next step, we install department wise. Now they are also focusing, okay, this is the department have 10 machines. Which machine is consuming more steam? In the last step, we decided to go machine wise. And then we gathering this information, and we will putting this all information on an internally developed sustainability portal. If you allow me, can also share this screen to you just to give an idea how manually, or if you do not have a specific system, how you can gather this information within your facility. Just give me a second. I can share my screen. I can explain internally without spending huge money what you can do. Just give me a second. Let me share the screen. Yes. Do let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, can see it. Yeah.
We have developed internally a sustainability portal of Diamond Fabrics Limited. What we are doing here, we have different kind of information there, like trainings and development, testing, audits, policy procedures. Here is the EMMS. You just want to see the water consumption. I will click here. We have different divisions like denim, apparel, spinning, powerhouse, colonies, weaving, 1, 2, utilities. Just need to click here, apparel consumption, and you can have the information hourly basis. 24 cubic meter per hour, what is being consumed. Colonie, 21 cubic meters per hour in May. All information can be calculated very easily if you have a manual flow meter. And now what I'm doing, I'm just taking this information real time through the SCADA system. Previously, we were putting manual information here. And if you do not want to spend huge money, just go for the conventional parameters. And this is also giving, for example, I just want to see my coal consumption. That is my coal consumption. Very less as compared to the previous year. If I
So,
just go to, yeah.
so, this is brilliant. Thank you. How long did it take you to go from beginning using a manual meter? You know, how long did it take you to go from the first step to now? You know, you started off using manual meters. Now you've got all this, you know, all these electric meters and all this fancy stuff. How long did it take you to go from zero to now?
That's a good and technical question. Well, we gradually come up with the solution. Then we realize ourselves. Initially, we didn't have a plan to spend huge money. But when we were gathering this information, it is very interesting information. It is very interesting data. So step by step, we have a competition with the divisions. As I already told you, we have 4 different divisions here. So after the competition, but we were fighting with each other. You are consuming more water as compared to the other division. Why you are consuming more? We have to work on the recipe making. We have to develop some new recipes. So these competitions come up with a solution. Okay, this is the time we have to spend information real time. And it takes almost 3 years. 5 years ago, we were gathering information manually. And after 2 years, we have a competition internally. And then, okay, everyone was fighting that this information is not correct. I need real-time information. And then we realized, okay, we have to go for the real-time information. For converting from normal setup to the SCADA system for the real-time, it takes 2 years to us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Eric, do you have anything to say on this kind of, you know, starting off small and slowly working upwards? Do you have any sort of experience working with companies over a long period on that and seeing their shift from starting off small and manual and then investing?
I think that's one strategy, and I certainly wouldn't discourage it. I think that's the best way to go. Take incremental steps. Other companies have done that. It just depends on their size. If they started off as an SME, then that makes the most sense, right? They're not going to expand the risk, but as they grow, certainly then they can take more initiatives to do this. But it's just simply impressive what Saqib has done from his side. So I noticed there's a question or a comment from Cambodia. I just wanted to address that quickly here. It was talking about some factories are convinced to transition to solar, but there's a 2-part tariff system that interferes. Yeah, that's the government. This is, in my opinion, would like to keep you on the grid. Now, they don't want to discourage you to go to solar, but yeah, it's an issue there, and this has to be a policy that needs to be addressed. I'd be curious to know that if you were to not go to solar, but go to like biomass or waste to energy, if the same thing is in place, and I don't think so. I think they're really focused on solar to try to keep factories more on the grid. So if this is from Lundy Savea, if you want to comment further, please do.
Yeah, that was an interesting question, and that topic came up in our GIZ held a physical event in Cambodia a couple of months ago. Saqib was there. I know he's missing Siem Reap a bit because he enjoyed himself in Cambodia. But that topic came up, you know, this thing that you're discussing, Eric, and yeah, it's a bit of a thorny one.
Well, I just want to explain here. I just want to explain some of the question I have just reviewed. I didn't answer yet. I will answer definitely later after this discussion. They were asking which is the best option to go for. I have a small advice. We have to focus on the sustainability. What is sustainability? Sustainability consists of 3 pillars: social, environmental, and economic. If your idea or the planning or the project is not socially having equity or economical viability or environmental preservative, You haven't go for that. So social equity, economical viability, and in environmental preservation must have equally balance in your idea, whatever you're focusing. For example, if a company has started working on a solar system, they have spent huge money. They are not going to meet the cost of manufacture. Then that is not a sustainable idea for them. A small factory working on this area, on the other side, they have gone for the natural gas, but they cannot afford to buy natural gas fired boiler, and that is not economical viability for the company. They have to focus everything. So these three pillars are very important: social, economical, and environmental. Whenever you consider any project or any initiative that you are going to do within your facility, you have to consider these three pillars as well. So if you think it's economical viable for you, and then definitely you have to go for it. And second important thing is sustainability is an investment. It's not a cost that we have to consider all the time. If you're investing in this way, you can sustain yourself in the global business.
You're talking about investment. There's a question here about investment. Jacqueline says, it's really great to hear from you. I agree. Could we hear a little bit more about the investment for these measures that you mentioned? Do brands, for example, make investment in this? So are the brands helping out, or is this all on you? Did you hear me, Saqib?
Yeah, sorry, please come again.
All right, the question is, you were talking about investment, and we have a question from Jacqueline. Can you talk a little bit more about the investments that you've made, and do brands, are brands investing in this as well, or is all this investment just Sapphire, Diamond? Is it just you?
Well, in my first investment, we have spent initially for the system that we are going to gather the information from different area with the basic meters, with conventional meter, and then we find out the challenges area. Like we have a huge electricity consumption, we identify after getting this information, and then we identify we have a huge number of water consumption in this area. Then we start investing to mitigate these challenges. We invest for the energy saving. We changes all the energy saver. I just want to show one thing here.
Okay.
If you want to notice, one sensor is there. Maybe you can see the blue or green light. So we initially invested in this part, and whenever I'm staying in my office, it's a very basic thing. It's a very basic thing. We have installed all the factories. If I'm not staying in my room, not only light will switch out, also my AC will be switched off. It's also linked with the sensor. And we have converted all the all the conventional light into LEDs, and then we invest on the servo motors. Because conventional motor having required more energy. We converted the servo motors as compared to the conventional motor converted to the servo motor. We are having less energy. And then we decided to go for the water saving. First, we go for the 100% condensing economizer. Condensate recovery was not being done in the past 100%. Sometimes we have some problem. And then we ensure 100% condensate recovery. What the outcome we received, we reduce our energy cost in our boiler, because all the time in the past we have to provide the fresh water. And now whenever you're returning your condensate, almost 70 to 80 centigrade water is being inputting into the boiler. It takes only 30 centigrade energy to improve, to achieve the 100 centigrade. And then we decided to for the condensing economizer. We have invested in that part. Condensing economizer help to provide hot water supply directly to your machines. We have added waste heat recovery boilers. So these boilers is generating steam through the hot air from the generators. We have two options. Either we have to go for the normal boiler with coal, with biomass, or maybe sometimes we are using diesel. But if you have within your facility, if you have a powerhouse, you also have a hot air coming from the generator. You can install waste heat recovery boilers there. So these boilers can help to generate energy, help to generate a steam without any energy. And then there are lots of exercise we have done within the facility. The list is so long, almost 40 projects we have done on a sustainability to achieve this kind of initiative we have taken.
So what about brand? What about brand involvement? Are brands, are brands putting any money into this?
No. In terms of money, no. Everything is on our shoulder. We have to bear the cost. Oh, but there is one interesting factor I just want to explain here. For example, we have reduced our cost manufacturing by investing on some of the machines. When we share this, we have reduced the cost and then said, okay, in the past you were giving $5.5, let's make a deal with 5.4 because you have reduced the cost. So these kind of challenges we are also facing. They always say we are the business partner, but practically they are not the partner. Honestly, it's a very honest opinion from my side. I hope the all manufacturers will also back me. And then
Just to jump in, I heard the same refrains coming from our meeting in Cambodia last week. When you're reducing your costs, they also want to reduce, as you said, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a seminar on this a couple of months ago. We had a seminar on ESG financing and supply chains, and we had an interesting guy from BNP Paribas that is working with some brands to offer loans into the supply chain through the brand. So manufacturers are getting a discount on capital. Well, that's a bit of a different issue. But yeah, thank you for your forthrightness, Saqib, on that one. So that's from Jacqueline. Lundi Sevilla Consulting has also asked another question. Eric fielded one of their questions earlier, but this one is, what about government incentives? In Pakistan, is the government playing any role? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sometimes we are getting rebate. A rebate in terms of, for example, if we are selling something or we are exporting something this year, for example, we have sold 1 million garments. And next year, if we achieve 10% more, then we return 7% rebate from the government. I think it's the same at the moment. I'm not 100% sure, but it was happening in the past. And also sometimes we are getting some benefit through the cost of our electricity. We have recently received, although all over the world, it's a time of world recession, price and the gas prices are increasing, and government is giving support to us at the moment with the less price of electricity. They are not giving huge support, but whatever that they can do, they are supporting. They're trying to support the textile industry in Pakistan.
So, Saqib, is there like a garment manufacturers association that you're a member of in Pakistan?
Yeah,
and how does the association support when you're trying to advance these type of initiatives with the government?
Whenever we have any problem, we share our concern with the APTMA. We call APTMA, the association head, they're leading in Pakistan. So this time when we have a similar kind of a problem of electricity, we have shared our concern with them, and they have raised our voice in front of the government, and government takes action and reduce the cost of electricity. So they are doing their part, whatever they can do. They are supporting us.
Okay, good.
And, yeah, thanks, Eric. Andy Yu from GIZ has a technical question for Saqib. For greenhouse gas mitigation calculation, do you include anaerobic digestion from wastewater treatment? If yes, how?
No, we are not calculating yet, but we are planning to in future. As I already told you, when we go for the 50% of water recycling, then obviously we have this in mind. We already discussed with our engineering team, but in future we will do something on it as well.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Matthew from TAL Apparel. Matthew wants to know about your portal. Is this being internally developed, the sustainability portal, or did you hire an IT consultant to do that?
Well, for Matthew, I have already given the answer, but I want to explain more. I want to explain more.
Yeah.
You have already given my introduction, but I just want to explain I am also a software engineer, and then I have done the MBA. And then I have done the MBAs and other certifications. So even though if you are working as a head position, you do not have a time to do everything yourself. But if you have some specific expertise, you can easily explain to the IT team what you are demanding from them. So as a software engineer, I have an idea in my mind. I have explained everything to them. And then ultimately, they have developed with the timeline of 1.5 years. It takes 1.5 years to develop. If anybody want to get support, I am happy to support them. It's my open offer to you.
Okay, I'm just going through questions here. I think you've answered some of them already in the chat box.
Yeah.
Lundi Severe kind of followed up with something that you answered, Eric. Biomass as a source of electricity was not a success here. There's just not enough feedstock. WTE is still very new, not economically viable yet in Cambodia.
Yeah, she's right. I think she or he, I'm not sure. But I just want to explain. I just want to explain here. Whenever you are working in this area, you try to find out any biomass. Either you are going for the corn cob or rice husk. You have to establish the supply chain continually in your facility. You also need to have a more space to store within your facility. For example, you need 1 metric ton, but you do not have a space within your facility, then it's not viable for you. So again, it's linked with the sustainability. Is it economical viable for you? You can go for it. Establishing supply chain for any source is also challenging for us at the moment. We do not have a space issue here. Our factory is around 110-acre area. So we have a space to store a huge number of rice husk or corn cob, whatever we use, because it's also, you can get this biomass on the basis of season, at the end of season. If there's a corn season, you can able to get, if there's a rice season is getting, and then you can establish this. You have to establish, but you have to find out the first best option for you, and then you need to find out the supplier. If the supplier is available for you, then definitely you have to go for it. Otherwise, you have to find some other solution.
Sure, and then I noticed from Lundy Savea that energy efficiency. So, and this is something, Saqib, you also have did a deep dive on for your company, and this is also, we're always talking about renewables or different sources of energy, but we also don't want to forget the real importance of energy efficiency. Just here in our UN building, for example, we changed the elevator system. It's more automated, but it reduced energy consumption for the just in the elevator system by 60%. So that's significant. So the things that you've done in your company in terms of energy efficiency, I'm sure have been are, as you said, have been significant. So we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, we also, as I already told you, we have more than 20 factories of Sapphire in different locations. We always have a competition with them. And we also try to gather information. Whenever you have a competition, you try to find out some other way to improve your system. And that is also helping us.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left, and I think we've gone through all of the questions. If I've missed out one, please just let me know in the chat box that I've missed your question. I just want to move now to think a bit about the future. Before we really get on to what does the future look like, I'd like to come back a bit to Jacqueline's question. Jacqueline asked, are the brands putting money into this? And Saqib was very frank and said no. We're just wondering about the brands. Brands and retailers are coming to producers with net zero targets. They've all got a net zero, not all, but most of the big ones have got a net zero strategy, and they've got 2024, 2030, 2050, whatever, and they got all of these targets. Are the brands providing you with actionable strategies that you can implement, or are they just coming to you and saying, oh, well, by 2024 we want to see a 10% reduction in CO2 emissions, and then leaving it up to, are the brands involved in this any more than just simply letting you know you've got to reduce emissions, or you've got to decarbonize? Can you talk? And I'm going to ask you about this too, Eric, because you've got experience with this as well. Let's just start with Saqib. Are the brands really laying out something specific for you to do when they come to you with net zero targets and so on?
Well, I'm working in the textile industry from last 17 years, and these decarbonization or carbon footprint challenges that we are facing from last 5 years or so. So from last 5 years, we are getting this information. We have to work on this. Honestly speaking, brand is only giving you the deadlines. So this is the deadline. You have to follow it. Otherwise, we do not have any business with you. Honestly, 99% brand is doing like this, but some of the brand is also here. They are giving some technical support to you on behalf of some third party. They are engaging some third party to make some internal self-assessment for highlighting the area of improvement from where you can improve your setup. They are also supporting only 1% of brand. They are spending money not directly to us, but they are spending money to arrange some technical expert, and they are sending their expert to our facility to verify and highlighting the area where we can improve ourselves. But 99% customer is only focusing on their deadlines. They have their certain target. They don't care about whatever you're doing and how you're doing, how much money you have to spend. They don't care about these kind of things. Honestly, 99%. Brand is only focusing on only giving the target lines.
Eric, what's your experience with with brands' involvement with producers in the supply chain on this issue?
Well, so I've heard this before, and I have to I totally agree with Saqib that a lot of it now we're working with the UNFCCC, which is the Climate Change Convention of the UN. They have something called the Fashion Charter. And we're supposed to be working with them. They're supposed to be attending our workshops, and every time they're supposed to show up, they're not. These are brands that have said that we will commit to reducing our emissions, but they're offshoring everything all the time. So this is a real issue. I think, one of the better brands in terms of dealing with social justice would be like H&M. But when it comes down to real greening of operations, then they just push it down the supply chain. So yeah, it's a real problem, and how to change that is it's gonna. All right, we have to step up the game from our side to ensure that the brands are not just whitewashing everything they do, just to make themselves look good, to promote their particular brand to younger people and so forth. Back to you, Stephen.
Yeah, there are many things running through my head here. That I think one of the stories of this year, certainly of the last 6 months, has been about cracking down on greenwashing. I saw in Australia this morning, an energy company here has been fined $56,000 for making eco claims that they can't back up. And that's you kill a monkey to scare the chickens. I think there'll be a lot of fashion brands in Australia who will sit up and take notice of that. We've had the European Union talk about greenwashing. We've got the UK talking about greenwashing. In the US, each one of these jurisdictions has got legislation that is really targeting now companies that are making claims And if those claims are scrutinised and they don't stand up to scrutiny, then there's the option of punishment, financial or otherwise. And so I think this is certainly an area that I think people are waking up to, but it's very good to see, or certainly hear from Saqib about his experiences, sort of hands-on as a producer in the supply chain. So let's just finish off with, we've only got 9 minutes, but Saqib, you talked a little bit about the future for your company, what you've got planned. But I wonder if you could take a step back and think about, what does the future look like for a producer, in the textile and garment industry now? What does the next 5 years look like for decarbonisation? What do you think is going to be happening?
Well, next 5 years would be very challenging. As you know, the cost of manufacture is increasing day by day. So we have to find out the way where we can reduce our cost and we can meet the customer expectation. The first thing I want to focus here, the future of textile is a carbon footprint. Now the brand is start asking the information from you, how much carbon is being emitted within your facility, and if you are supplying a gray fabric to us, how much carbon you have consumed by producing this gray fabric, either it's a denim or a final product. But for your knowledge, at the moment, we have done some exercise in the past to identify that life cycle assessment of the product. For the life cycle assessment of the product, you also need to identify the carbon emission within your facility. So calculation of carbon emission is very important. There are different tools are available. If you do not have a meters, or if you do not have a sophisticated within your facility, very simple tools are available on the internet. Just I have given the example to you for the Higg index. You just need to put the 1 calendar year information of your natural gas consumption, your coal consumption, diesel, whatever you are using within your facility. They will give you the idea of carbon emission that you have emitted throughout the calendar year. If you do not have this information, next 5-year brand may be avoiding business with you. So you need to identify at the moment, it is the right time to invest on gathering this information within your facility. Otherwise, in future, we are not going to make any business as stated by the brand. What I have feel in my experience, also GS is supporting us in this case. We were trying to identify the carbon footprint of a fabric, but we didn't find out the sources. We didn't find out the supply chain who were already calculating this information at their part. Because we have started our production process from the cotton, we need to find out the ginning area where they are calculating this information. For example, what information we need from them, what was the water being consumed for growing up the 1 acre cotton. If we have this information of carbon emission, then we can share the information with them. And if you are going to develop a fabric, you need 2 raw materials. The first raw material is your cotton. The second raw material is going to use the chemicals. For example, you are using 5 chemicals in your supply chain to developing that product. You need to find out the supplier, the formulator, who are calculating this information. Honestly, in my experience, I have done this exercise almost 6 months ago. I have shared this information with 5 formulators that we are getting this chemical from you. Can you share the number of carbon you have emitted to produce this amount of a chemical? They said we do not have a specific information for this chemical, but apart from the 5 formulator, only 1 formulator provided this information, and that was not relevant with the chemical that I am purchasing from them. The information was only relevant with the calendar year information. He said, I have emitted this amount of carbon emission in a year. You can calculate whatever the chemical in liters you have purchased from us. So that is the estimated information. So for the future, for the decarbonization, first we need to find out the alternatives from where we can reduce our carbon emission. And second, we have to establish the proper supply chain from where we can get this information. In my presentation, I have shown you one Adidas shoes. They have clearly mentioned the carbon footprint emitted into the air. And same kind is going to happen for the textile. Now the brand is start to gather this information, and then they are going to label their product to producing this one jeans. This amount is of carbonation being emitted into the air. So this is a very hot topic at the moment, and all the manufacturers must do something to sustain in a global market. And also it's our ethical responsibility to reduce this kind of carbon emission to air. There are different kind of diseases now are coming, and also we have air quality is getting decreased day by day. So we have to play every time. We have to save our business. We have to save our nature resources. We have to save something for our children. This is our core responsibility. So that's I'm forecasting or foreseeing at the moment the future of textile.
Thanks, Saqib. Before I turn to Eric, the IT people have just put a little link in the chat box to a short survey poll, just to give us a bit of feedback about this online seminar. It'll take you about a minute to fill out. It also allows you to provide potential topics that you'd like us to cover in upcoming technical seminars. So please click on that link if you'd like to help us out and provide better webinars to you, seminars to you in future. Saqib, there's a question in the chat box from Andy. I won't ask you to talk about it. We don't have time. Maybe you could just do a yes or no to him in the chat box. And Eric, I'll leave the last words to you about, how do you see the future playing out for this?
I have answered. Yes.
Yeah, I saw. Eric.
If you want to know how we can explain, maybe we have a very limited time now, so I can explain in detail later on.
Sure. No, I think what we're seeing here is that is really lateral thinking, forward thinking, coming across from companies such as Saqib's company, where they just took the initiative and saw the benefits of doing so, building resilience to their energy mix, reducing their energy consumption. But the thing that sort of bothers me now is they're not being properly rewarded for doing this from the brand side. So this is something that we need to work with more. And I see a message here from Matthew at TAL. And yes, regarding UNFCCC, we were working with Nicholas, but he has moved on. It's supposed to be Lindita, and then she has just not been coming back. So that's why we're if you want to raise this issue with the fashion charter, please do, because they were supposed to join us in Bangladesh next week for our meeting with the garment sector there, and they didn't. So this is some of the issues. A lot of what's going on the UN side is people are moving around, and it's a capacity issue. But that doesn't mean our constituents should be punished for that. So we need to provide better support to Saqib and all the the companies out there, the employees as well. And it's good to see that Saqib's company has empowered employees to, if they spot problems, they report it to management. So if you see a boiler that's leaking and you report it, you're reducing the company's energy consumption, but you're also improving occupational safety and health. So I mean, these are the things we need to see, the co-benefits of everything we do. So I just like to applaud Saqib for all his fine work. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. I just need 1 minute here. Most of the suppliers are in the copy, maybe from Cambodia or maybe from some other countries. I just put their information that I'm traveling to Singapore on Saturday evening, and I will be there till November 5th. So we can catch up in a social apparel coalition annual meeting. You can share your email with me if we want to do something for you for the betterment of our world, to save our natural resources. Whatever we have done, I can share with you, and we can also have a one-to-one meeting over there.
Okay, so if you're in Singapore for the SAC conference, look up Saqib and have a one-to-one meeting with him. Take him out for a coffee and reward him for his fine job today. I don't know where you'll find Eric. If you're in Bangkok, get to the ILO building. You can buy him a coffee there as well.
Yes, please do. And I see Matthew has sent me his email. The thing is, I can't get this off the chat. I don't know. I tried to copy, and the whole thing just goes spinning like crazy. So, Matthew,
I can't
if
help
you
you
could,
there, but
if
one of the IT people will capture that and send it to you, Eric.
okay, please do, so I can respond to Matthew Gunter at TALAapparel.com. I can't capture that quick enough, so
Anyway,
please.
don't worry.
Okay,
Awesome.
cheers. Because we would like to invite you to join our workshops and so forth.
Beautiful. This is what I like.
Right.
This is what I like.
Excellent. This is excellent because this is the whole point of bringing everybody together, so we can
Exactly.
co-share our knowledge and learn from each other, co-learning. This is how I see it.
Exactly, and I think this has been a great session. Thank you everybody for your questions in the chat box. I hope we got through all of them. If you're leaving dissatisfied, send a message to GIZ. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, gentlemen, to Eric and to Saqib, our two guests. Without this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, really great interaction with the audience. I loved it. It's just up to me on behalf of GIZ Fabric now to say thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Saqib. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Saqib, great
Cheers.
great
Cheers to everyone.
Stefan, thank you.
Yeah.
Ferdinand, my friend.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.